we are going to hear from our friend Autumn as we talk about game jams to hear her take on all of the game jams that she's participated in and learn a little bit about what it might look like to kind of take the perspective of a project manager for a game jam. So, everybody, a digital round of applause for Autumn.
Hi, my name is Autumn Greenlee, and welcome to my Talent Talk. Today I'll be talking about something that I think is pretty important to the game dev process, which is finishing a game. Mainly I'll be talking about it in regards to game jams, though I think a lot of these skills kind of transfer over. There's a lot of overlap, as it turns out. So, for reference, I already think I said my name, but I'm Autumn Greenlee. I've been doing game jams since 2016, so about 4 or 5 years, give or take. I feel like I've done a lot of games because I've done 15 game jams. But when you take things like a weekend at a time or a week at a time, it kind of all blends together. Personally, I usually work with small groups locally, but I have done jams alone or, with weird groups sometimes. Before doing a lot of video game stuff, I was involved with a robotics team, which I think has helped give me some perspective because on the robotics team, our goal was to build a robot in 6 weeks. And, at the end of the 6 weeks, you had to have something. And I think that kind of mentality of like, it's better to finish something than, you know, not finish something has really transferred through. In this talk, I'll be going over what I consider three of the main stages of doing a game jam, which is figuring out the game you're going to make, and then making it, and then telling everybody that you made it or what you do afterwards. So, first category, ideation, making the idea that will become your game. So, usually I start with considering like what skills the people that I'm working with have and how well I know them. If I am working by myself, obviously that reduces the scale of the game I can make. We can either, or I can do like programming and art, both things by myself usually, but I can't do them both extensively on the same project and have it be very long. So you kind of have to scale out like what sort of project you want to do. The same applies if you're working with a group. Um, if you have someone who's an artist and someone who's a writer, but no one who does very much programming, you'll probably want to keep that in mind. And also, like, it's just good to not make huge, ambitious plans that you have no way of fulfilling. When you know your people that you're working with, you tend to be able to estimate what you can do better. So I know the abilities of my friends that I work with. I know what we're capable of, which makes it easier to have a realistic idea of what we can accomplish. If I was working with like two people I've never met online, then it would be very hard to tell how reliable they are and how well we synthesize. I've included this nice, you know, allegory of the horse about how it's something that I've often heard that when horses have worked together before, they're able to carry a lot more weight than if they're just horses that have not met before, which is basically game devs. Game devs are horses. But if you don't know the people you're working with, don't worry about it. That's very common. As you will notice if you go to one of the many forums available to talk to other people who are looking for someone to work with in a jam. So PIGSquad jams are good for this because we have a built-in community. So like you could just go on the Discord, go into the game jam chat, look at the posts that came before you, and see how many people were looking for something. Uh, Usually, it's good to be proactive. Like, don't just go and make your post saying, "Hi, I'm an artist. I want to make a game. Bye." Because that's what everyone is doing, and if no one is just trying to assemble a team, then it's hard. It helps to be the person that says, okay, I'll start talking to people, I'll start hashing things out so we can figure out, you know what to do. if you're not doing a PIGSquad jam, there's still plenty of places to look. Itch jams will always have a forum of some kind, and if not that, then go to Twitter, see what everyone's posting, and maybe you'll find something. After we've kind of hammered out what we're capable of doing, I like to think about what we kind of want to achieve. So, for example, I like to think about what kind of emotion I want the player to experience or what sort of vibe we're going for. Like, do we want to do a funny game or like some sort of dark, serious thing? Uh, and something that kind of contributes to what we decide to do is where we'll be showing it for the most part. So if I'm designing for an in-person showcase, like for a PIGSquad jam, I try to think of things that are kind of unique to that experience. So for example, tabletop games or multiplayer games, things that are difficult to replicate online are great for in-person showcases. You have total control of that environment. You could do pretty much anything. You could do a LARP or a card game or whatever. Now, it's still good to try to think of some way to memorialize these games and post them online, but obviously it's going to be difficult to let anyone have that exact same experience. But if I know that I'm going to be releasing it digitally, that kind of shifts what I can focus on. So at physical showcases, it can be difficult to keep people's attention. Personally, I love things like visual novels and puzzle games, but I have attention span problems and I get distracted easily. And when there's a lot of people and a lot of noise and a lot of games, it can be very hard to sit down and do something that requires that level of attention. If I'm sitting at my house, I can spend more attention on these games. So something like a visual novel or like scary games that require an atmosphere of being kind of dark and alone, I feel like are good for digital release. Nowadays, things are a little bit more of a mix because have things like the streams that PIGSquad has been doing to show off recent show jams, and those kind of end up being a little somewhere between the two. Uh, Other than like that sort of literal goal thinking, there's also the other side of goals, which is like, what do you want to do personally? So, like, sometimes people I know will come into a jam like, oh, I want to make a platformer game because I've not done a platformer before, or I want to work on my writing because I feel like my writing is lacking and it would be great to have a chance to try to practice that in a full game environment. It's a good time to practice skills that you don't normally do. It's also a good time to meet people or work with people that you don't know, or to try to use some sort of new framework or something that you're looking at. So after figuring out the like kind of extents of what we're able to do and what we want to do, then you kind of have to hammer it down a little bit. You have to actually figure out the exact theming and what your game will entail. Uh, at this point, I think usually just talking about it for like an hour until people get bored of talking about it is a good way of getting those initial ideas out. It's useful to have somebody write down everything that people say just to kind of keep track of all of the ideas that are coming out because often they will be coming fast. So try to make sure that everything gets copied down so that after everyone has gotten bored of talking about it, you can go through your list and kind of evaluate what everybody still resonates with. Usually, I find that we kind of arrive at a consensus by then without having to break it down and vote, but you can always vote if you need to. Try to find compromises that will make everybody happy with the idea you decide on so that nobody walks away upset about it. You know, Sometimes the best thing you can do is combine concepts so that if someone likes this component of one idea and that component of another, then it can just form one idea. Sometimes that's not super possible, but it's something to consider if you're having a hard time choosing one thing. So after we kind of get a rough idea of what we're doing and we talk about like some of the higher ideas and get it narrowed down a little bit, like if we have like a concept, like we've decided we want to do a restaurant themed platformer, then I'll have everybody draw out what they think the game looks like because for even if you discuss something for hours, people picture it differently. So it's good to get an idea early on, especially. of what people are literally picturing when you're talking about the game. So without letting people share initially, I like to have everybody just go around and draw out a screenshot of what they think it looks like. Obviously, it doesn't need to be anything too artistically great because it's just trying to convey what you're seeing in your head. But people are good artists, sometimes quick, but that's unfair, so it doesn't count. After everybody's done, we go around and everyone kind of shows what they were thinking, and usually that helps people kind of meld these concepts that they have in their heads. And it kind of helps build a more cohesive idea because people can borrow visual shorthand from each other. And they don't have to be so blind in trying to guess what other people are thinking. Uh, Other than that, we also try to go through and write down a list of all of the things that we think we need in the game. So that can be very granular. Like, I try to mean, like, okay, so we need a character who can move across the screen. And then going from there, like, okay, do they need to be able to jump? Do they need to be able to do some kind of attack or interaction with the world? So as a group, I try to have everyone go through and list out these things. And kind of like with the thumbnailing, I like to let people do things individually just so that you don't get quite as strong of a case of groupthink. And we go through and try to rank the importance of all of these things that we've come up with. Even if you're working alone, I think that this is a good like first step to just get out what the most basic requirements of your game is. People's ideas will vary a lot, and this can kind of help bring on some discussion of what we think is actually important. And something that I encounter a lot, and this mainly applies when working with groups, since when you're working by yourself, it's less important. But if you're working with a group of people, and some people are very outspoken and some people are very quiet, you have to be careful. Because people who are very outspoken will obviously speak their ideas, which is great. Everyone should be able to communicate what they're thinking. That's good. But other people are a little bit more withdrawn or reserved about sharing everything that they are thinking. So you kind of have to try to draw it out a little bit, try to go around and make sure that everybody's ideas are being represented. Like, sometimes people will just have less ideas. Like, I'm not a strong idea person myself. I like trying to make sure that everybody is conveying their ideas for that reason. But it's good to try to make sure that everybody has input in the project. Because if they're going to be working on it, you don't want to make something that one person is secretly sitting there going like, man, this sucks. I wish we were doing this totally different concept that I had thought of, but whatever. Uh, Kind of similarly to that, try not to be the person who comes into a jam with a fully formed idea of what they want to do. Like, having goals, as discussed, good and important, but don't sit there being like, oh, okay, so the main character's name is yada yada, and he's a cool space marine, and that's the game we're making, guys, so deal with it. Try to be a little more accommodating, make sure that it's a group process. Everybody likes contributing their ideas. Well, most people. But it's not fair if you just like decide everything from the get-go and leave nothing for other people. That isn't a great exchange of ideas for anybody. After you make the idea, you have to go through and do a very unfortunate thing, which is you have to actually make a game. But that is okay, because you'll be able to plan things and reduce everything down to manageable bites. So initially, to start, I like to make a list of assets that we'll need. Usually I start by taking the list of important traits about the game that we all decided as a group, and then kind of break that down into like usually graphics. Though it's also good to just keep a handle on who's supposed to be programming what, or who's making the music, or who's doing the sound effects. And it can be a lot to manage, so just breaking it down into a spreadsheet, throwing it on Google Sheets, and making sure that everybody has access to it will get you pretty far. It also helps to make sure that someone's accountable for everything, because otherwise it's very easy to just think like, oh, well, so-and-so has it, so I don't need to worry about it, when so-and-so is thinking, oh, well, they have it, so I don't need to worry about it. Uh, Unfortunately, something that I've noticed with game jams and with most projects that involve some sort of end state is that you kind of need a manager or somebody who is designated to just annoy everybody else. Usually it's me, but it just, you need somebody who can go to people and say, hey, how is this going? Do you have any problems? Do you need any help? Are you making the progress you thought, or do we need to make changes to accommodate for something unprecedented? Uh, and it can seem very overbearing. It can seem like you're being annoying, but it's fine. There wouldn't be a game without someone being annoying and making sure that everything is getting done. Uh, just make sure that everybody in the group has an understanding of what's going on. So, other than the asset sheet, I usually also have some kind of deadline or timeline sheet where I try to have an idea of what we're expecting to get done at what times. Uh, if you break it down a lot, it seems like you're just doing little bits, which is good because it doesn't feel intimidating, like you have to make a whole game. But you do, but you just do it in little bits. So, uh, but just trying to have something to keep you accountable to your own estimations is good. It doesn't need to be anything serious, just like, oh, I'll try to get this done in the next 2 days, and if not, we'll move on from there. While you're making your game, it's also important to keep in mind that you should probably be telling other people you're making a game, which is unfortunate. It's the mortifying ordeal of being known, as most people say. But, you know, so you have to go on Twitter or Instagram or what have you and tell people what you're making and show them a little picture, make a little GIF. And while you're there, why don't you look at what everyone else is doing too? Because people are making very cool things, and it's good to see what everybody is doing. It's also just, a good thing to do, just to see everything. It's good to give people feedback when they ask for it, so that when you ask people for feedback, maybe someone will give you feedback. Now, after your game is done, then you have to post it online and you have to do all of that sort of thing. So, the first thing after you finish your game or get finished with your game is you have to submit your game somewhere. In indie circles, this is almost certainly going to be itch.io. There's also Game Jolt and a few others, but itch is definitely the main hub when it comes to indie games. So usually you just want to get your game posted, and then you could take a break, usually. Most jams will let that happen. But it's good to make the page look nice. It's good to try to give the viewer all the information that they might need to play your game. Uh, I've thrown in a link on the slides to Marlowe's talk about making your itch page look cool. It's a very good stream. I totally recommend it. And I recommend, just trying to give the best presentation of what you have. Even if you're feeling like you didn't accomplish everything, you can still present it with your all so that, it looks nice. Even if you didn't finish your game, I think you should always still upload something. Some sort of little piece of proof that you worked on something is great, and there's no reason not to. Pixels are cheap. After you've submitted, you should sleep. You should be sleeping this whole time, though. Don't do crunch, even though game jams are kind of designed around the concept of crunch and producing a game very quickly, but, So, after you've slept, then you need to post your game again, probably. Social media, unfortunately, is just something that you have to do if you want people to see your game. So go ahead and post about your game again. Do it a couple more times. Tag PIGSquad. Normal things. Even if you feel like you're being annoying, people have not seen your post. Even if you post 5 times, people will still have probably not seen your post, so don't worry about it. Even if they do, it's like 5 seconds of their day if they're not interested. It's alright. You're welcome to be annoying, because you're sharing your very hard work that you made something cool out of. Once again, go see what other people made. Go check out other Game Jam entries. Now, after you've done all of that, you probably said at some point during your project, like, oh, that'll be cool to add in after the jam. You can do that. You cannot do that. It's okay. It's okay to just let a game jam be a game jam game. It doesn't need to be bigger than that, but it can be if you want it to. Now, after you've finished adjusting, finished doing all the things that go into making a game jam game, you should also probably do a post-mortem of some kind. Now, this is what happens when, your game is done and you're thinking about all of the things that you did and how it turned out and what you wish you could change. It's good to meet up with your group or just by yourself, think about it, and talk about what could have improved, what you were proud of, what you should do next time. Just think about the process and all of the bumps along the way and try to do better next time. Or try to write tips to yourself to try to do that. Now, lightning round. Let's go over some popular game jams in case you don't know where to start. So obviously you should start with PIGSquad Summer Slow Jams because they happen every year, 3 times a year, with a great community, and they're slow, so you have a week or so to do your game, which is both a blessing and a curse. But uh, it's also a good opportunity to physically showcase games because most game jams, that is, if you're in the Portland area, I suppose. If not, then you should probably look around and see if there's any local game groups. Community is good. But yeah, I recommend finding some way to physically showcase your games. Summer Slow Jams are a great opportunity if you're a Portland local or just in the state like me. I'm not in Portland, I'm like an hour away, but I still go up to show games. Also very important is the Global Game Jam. Now, this one is coming up super soon. This is like within the next month. It's a short jam, 2 days, so you don't have to spend a week worrying about it. Personally, even though like I don't tend to get a ton of feedback on my Global Game Jam games, or like they don't tend to be particularly popular, I think it's a really good milestone. Like I can look back and almost every year since 2016, I've made a Global Game Jam game, and I can kind of compare and see how I've grown or how my stylistic preferences have changed over that time. Uh, Usually Global Game Jam wants you to meet up in person, like they want you to go to a local area. Usually I host one in Corvallis, Oregon, if you are around that area. But this year is weird because COVID. Other than those two, the third one that I would consider a big jam is Ludum Dare. It used to happen like 3 or 4 times a year, but now we're down to just two, April and October. It has both a jam and a compo, so you could either do 3 days or two, depending on how serious you want to take it or how strict you want to be. Usually I like the 3 day jam, but it's up to your preference. Uh, I think that Ludum Dare is very strong in its rating system. So it has this thing where you can go through and, the more games that you interact with and leave reviews and give feedback to, the more your game is boosted in some search results. So it can be really easy to go through and, one, lets you see other people's games, great. Two, makes people see your game more, also great. By far, my most popular game has been a product of Ludum Dare because it got that early boost of viewers from that review system, which then helped it, like, kind of Kerbal Space Station it into orbit and keep going. I also feel like I see streamers do this one a lot, but that might just be bias of some kind. And, obviously, if you don't want to do any of the three big ones, there are hundreds upon thousands more jams. Just go on itch.io, look at the showcase jam section, and pick one, because there's a ton of them, and you certainly can find one that kind of fits your preferences. I personally usually like the ones that Xavier Eckel runs, usually based off of like, oh, take a movie scene and adapt it to a game, or take a song and adapt it to a game, which I think is a really interesting way to kind of be an idea generator. Uh, but yeah, other than that, I hope that no one is too intimidated by the idea of doing a game jam because they're kind of designed to be bite-sized and easy. Just try to focus on making sure that things get done and that, you know, everybody is happy, everybody is not stressed, as possible at least. Yeah, have a good day and keep jamming.
Thank you so much, Autumn. That's such good advice. I tell people everything that you just said so many times, and it's really nice to have this in one place. I think everything you just said is like, yeah, it's so extremely important for any creative project, but especially for jams, being able to go in and have a plan. I also think, like, I think one of the things I say more often is like, yeah, like upload something, even if you don't, finish. Like, not only does that help you and kind of, as you said, why not? It also really helps with like PIGSquad jams, keeping up kind of like PIGSquad history. It's really helpful for anybody in the community to go back and say, wait, what was that game I saw again in that showcase? Or, that could be someone's next inspiration. So being able to upload that stuff is really important. Showcasing it and seeing stuff in person is really important. And not only that, but planning your game around a showcase is something that I've seen you do in the past that's like really paid off. It's really, really cool. Anyways, thanks. Yeah, I think I think so many people in our community have learned about what you're talking about. But there are so many new people coming into the community who definitely need this kind of like crash course on how to jam and what to expect and all those other kinds of things. Because, yeah, I just think everything you said there was just the truth. So thank you for that. Really, really cool. And again, Global Game Jam's coming up at the end of next month. And just to kind of capitalize on something that Autumn said, it will be fully remote, and you can totally join. Some sites are allowed to allow people from anywhere to their jam sites. So, yeah, if you're watching this PIGSquad stream right now and you are not local to Portland, or even if you are, as Autumn is, an hour out of Portland in Corvallis or anything like that, and you want to join PIGSquad's jam site, you're totally welcome to. That information is all on our website. If you go to our calendar, you can go to January, and then Global Game Jam's down there, and there's a lot of information, including registration and all those kinds of things. And you'll submit your game at the end. And as Autumn said, sometimes Global Game Jam's sharing isn't as good as especially something like Ludum Dare, but we will be doing our showcase. I think one thing that we've really kind of gained this year from the pandemic has been these showcases where we kind of get eyes on all games and everything like that. It's been really cool. It's been extremely rewarding to be able to kind of like connect with everybody through their games, and even though it's just through chat, being able to kind of like see everybody's reactions and chat with each other has been really cool. So anyways, game jams, do them. They're great. We sure have a really amazing community, and a lot of that skill comes from what people have done with game jams.